Calling it a jobs and growth hat trick, Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland put a national child care plan front and centre in her first ever budget. The price tag is in the billions and needs the provinces to sign on. Let's find out if it's feasible and if it's enough with, in the nation's capital, economist Armine Yalnizyan, Atkinson Fellow on the Future of Workers and a member of the federal government's task force on women in the economy. In Osgood, Ontario, just south of Ottawa, Alana Powell, Executive Coordinator of the Association of Early Childhood Educators Ontario. And in St. Catharines, Ontario, Kate Bezanson, Associate Professor of Sociology and Associate Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences at Brock University. And we're delighted to have the three of you back on our program tonight. I want to just start by putting out this fact file here, so for those who aren't right on top of the numbers from yesterday's budget, you can be up to speed. So Sheldon, if you would, let's bring this up, and I'll read this out loud for those listening on podcast as well. The plan in yesterday's federal budget, $30 billion over the next 5 years. It was the largest line item in this budget. Childcare, $8.2 billion a year budgeted thereafter, $2.5 billion for Indigenous early learning and childcare. And the hope is that this will cut fees by 50% within 18 months, the goal being childcare that will cost parents $10 a day per child by the year 2026 nationwide. Armine, get us started. Is this the childcare announcement you were hoping for?
Yes, sir. I was blown away by this announcement. It was everything we were looking for and more. And now all we are missing are the provincial dance partners, which will be possibly a big hiccup in the coming months. But there is, for the first time in the nation's capital, the political will to see childcare as a necessary, critical element of the social infrastructure that can help create a much more resilient and potentially larger economy.
We'll pursue that angle of whether the provinces will sign on in just a moment. Alana, how about you? Is this the announcement you've been waiting for?
Absolutely. I can say confidently that early childhood educators across the province are feeling more hopeful than ever about the future of the sector. It's been a really long year. It's been a long number of decades that folks have been fighting for this. Yesterday, I had the privilege of being on a call with generations of childcare advocates, new early childhood educators who are just entering the profession, and we were collectively overwhelmed by this commitment. And we're really excited to work collaboratively with the federal government and in Ontario with our provincial government to make sure that this happens for our children and families.
Kate Bezanson, are you going to make it unanimous, or are we going to get you to quibble with something here?
There will be no quibbling. All of what has been said, I will underline and support. I'd say this is how you build a system, and this is a triple word score for our recovery. It's good for kids, it's good for parents, and it's good for our economy. I am delighted, over the moon. It's fantastic.
Armine, we are certainly well aware of how this pandemic has affected women disproportionately going back over the past 14 months or so. Do you think this is the kind of announcement that will enable women to get back into the labor force?
It is the only policy amenable announcement that any government can make, because there's going to be large parts of this that are uncontrollable by any government. How many businesses shut down permanently because of the pandemic is unknowable right now, because the pandemic is not over. And we know that in last spring, particularly, we had the world's first ever she-cession, and it happened globally because the companies that shut down were marginal, non-essential businesses in personal services, in retail, in hospitality, in all the things that are just not essential to every day, but disproportionately higher low-paid workers who happen to disproportionately be women who are racialized, and recent immigrants and migrant workers. So those jobs may not be coming back, but the thing that will maximize the potential for things to get back to normal is to make sure we don't have built-in policy choke points in the system, so that women can accept work when it is offered to them and don't have to quit work because there's no childcare, and they can't keep going on indefinitely providing unpaid care at home and doing paid work. So this is the only policy amenable tool available to any level of government to assure we are maximizing our economic potential for recovery.
Elena, let's do some of the math here. On average, how much does it cost to put a single child into childcare?
It can depend really on where you are located in the province, but median fees in Ontario per day right now, median is for an infant space, $66, toddler, $54, preschool, $45, kindergarten school age, $42. So when we're looking at what was promised in this budget, $10 a day is a drastic and transformative reduction in the cost associated for families. So this will move Ontario forward and Canada forward in a big way in terms of economic justice and gender equity, really.
And Kate, as you look at the landscape in Ontario right now, let's just focus on this province. Can you compare, please, the supply of childcare available with the demand of parents who want it?
So, pandemic is an important and interesting time. We've seen that the childcare sector has, in fact, been put into crisis in pandemic. We've seen childcare centres close over the last year. In Ontario alone, 138 centres have closed over the last year in pandemic. Childcare has never been more essential, but also has never been more fragile. So right now, there are actually centres in Ontario that no longer have waiting lists, and that's as a result of a number of variables. One of those variables is, as we're back in March 2020, if we think about it in terms of where we are in Ontario in this health crisis. You know, we have schools closed, we have parents being called or pushed out of the labor market again as a result of the sectors in which they work. So we're not in a period yet of recovery or moving to the other side. So right now we see that there are actually fewer enrollments in centers than there were pre-pandemic. And this is in part owing to the cost. Parents are making a calculation. If I have a school-age kid home, I'm not going to keep my other child in childcare and pay, you know, in Toronto, for example, $1,800 a month. But it's also owing to the kind of calculation that parents are doing around vectors of transmission and level of exposure of members of their households. So there is, outside of pandemic, a huge demand. We now are going to come out on the other side of this with reduced supply and a more precarious sector. So this investment right now is essential to getting us to the other side, to just returning us to whole where we were before the pandemic. And where we were before the pandemic was not a lot of spots for the number of kids who needed them.
Well, let me do a fast follow-up with you then, Kate. If we wanted to create enough spaces to fulfill all of the demand for spaces, what is that number?
That's a great question. And right now in Ontario, we have, in Canada, we have spaces for 27% of kids who need childcare. So looking at the landscape across the country, we can see that we have a big distance to go. Quebec, for example, has a much higher rate of accessibility for childcare. So Ontario is going to need to do a lot of work to build out the number of spaces that are going to be available. And this new funding that's promised in the federal budget goes a good distance to putting operational money on the table to build out those spaces and grow a system over time.
Alana, I just want to get a sense of it, though. Are we talking about a need for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of spaces? What is it?
Certainly, to start, we're looking at tens of thousands in Ontario. We know we're only meeting about a quarter of the need right now in the licensed childcare sector, and that we certainly have, you know, the desire and the interest from families to use the services were they affordable, accessible to them. So, you know, starting slow, we're certainly looking at 10,000 spaces to begin with, but the expansion, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of what exactly we need and where exactly we need it, because need is different across the province and across the country.
Right. All right. Armin, one of the reasons we love having you on this show is that you can translate budgetese or bureaucratese. You don't speak it, but you can translate it. You understand it. And I want to, here's the line. The budget says $27.2 billion will be used, quote, to bring the federal government to a 50-50 share of childcare costs with provincial and territorial governments. Translate. What does that actually mean on the ground?
Yeah.
What it actually means is that the federal government has been MIA on childcare for 50 years, and that the provinces have done most of the heavy lifting on whatever patchwork of system we've got across the country. The federal government now recognizes that this is a macroeconomic issue. This is not just a feminist issue. This isn't just a family issue. And this is going to hold back a lot of provincial rebounding. So they are offering effectively free money. They're saying you don't have to raise the revenues in your province, which is good news because the provinces are more cash strapped than the federal government is. So they're offering new incremental funding that is large, that scales up, and comes with conditions, but is not conditional on cost sharing by provinces. And at the end of that 5 years, the hope is that they will be fully equal partners with the provinces in what the provinces are currently spending. Thereafter, after 5 years, we'll see whether it's a cost shared program. But right now, it's not even cost shared. It just comes with the strings saying, we will give you the money if you are improving affordability, accessibility, and quality. And this is the second round of agreements with the federal and provincial government like this, because in 2017, the federal government also offered money to improve affordability and accessibility. This is the first time we're talking about quality, which is so incredibly important, and it's a whole lot more money, and it's for a much longer term, and it's basically laying the table for the next round of negotiations, with bilateral negotiations, province by province.
Well, Alana, let me play designated killjoy for a second here, because I'm going to go back more than 50 years to a time when the feds and the provinces were talking about creating Medicare in the country, and they did, of course. And the understanding was that it would be a shared 50-50 splitting the costs program. Now, of course, it's not 50-50 anymore. The feds are contributing about 23%, and the provinces are picking up the vast lion's share. How do we know that a 50-50 program today won't 10, 20, 30 years down the road with a different federal government turn into something that looks more like Medicare and less what you plan to spend today?
That's an excellent question. And I think what's important to talk about here is that this is a 5-year plan. It's the beginning of building a system. So the 50-50 cost share as a goal is ambitious, and it's important, and it's what we need. What happens next is really going to be about further negotiations that, really take into account where are we going? How is the system building happening? What are the needs? And to really see, what are the economic benefits that we're seeing come from the system? And what does that mean in terms of next steps? So I think it's hard right now to predict what this will look like in 10, 15, 20 years. But certainly what the federal government has proposed in terms of the first 5 years is exactly what we need right now.
All right, fair enough. Let's follow up then. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Armeen.
This is really an important analogy. The Medicare analogy is extremely important for ELCC. And what you have focused on is the cash transfer. But when Medicare was created, it was created as both cash and tax point transfers because that's what Quebec wanted. And frankly, and it was after the war where the war had actually sucked up tax room from the provinces, taken it to the federal level, and the provinces said, give us back our tax room. So Medicare was predicated on a combination of tax points given back to the provinces and cash. So the cash part is actually what was the original envisioning. It was supposed to be 50-50 between tax points and cash. But the provinces, after 1995, everybody had this allergy to raising taxes. Everybody wanted to cut taxes. So everybody said the tax point space doesn't hold because nobody wants to raise taxes. So we are now operating in an entirely different fiscal federalism, which is all about cash and not about tax room. So we can't mix those metaphors 100% of the way.
Gotcha. All right. In which case, let me raise this with Kate then. We know, I guess some people might be asking themselves today, if the federal government wants to create a child care plan, why don't they just do it? Well, the answer, of course, is that our Constitution gives responsibility for these social services to the provinces. So they have to negotiate an agreement with the provinces. In which case, Kate, what do the provinces want as their part of these negotiations?
Well, I think that the provinces have been at the table at least since 2017 in negotiating the bilateral agreements, and they were rolled over for a year this past year because of the conditions in pandemic. So the principles and agreements have already been established, and this builds on those. One of the things, of course, that Armin has said absolutely correctly is that this is a massive investment. And when the federal government is saying it's coming to the table with lots of cash and it wants to be an equal partner, let's just look right now in Ontario this past year, the federal government contributed about $145 million towards early learning and childcare, where the province contributed $1.6 billion. The federal government has not been a significant financial player at the table. So now to be able to say, we are going to move to a position of being a 50% partner at the table, this allows provinces to say, we can plan, we can build our workforce, we can build a wage grid, we can set fee caps, we can make it affordable for parents, we can make it high quality, and we can build out the operational spaces. And we have a partner who's willing to put really significant cash on the table year over year to do what we know is the best practice in building a system and providing all of those economic outcomes for the economy that we are going to need to get out of this very significant and difficult position that we're in. There's always a federalism dance. I've been calling this pandemic federalism. We're at a different moment. We've seen, friction, but also the need for collaboration. And we need our economic engine to be ready to go and to fire. And to get it to fire, we need to do this investment now, build this system so that we can have that kind of GDP return, those kinds of taxation revenues, the kinds of hugely important developmental outcomes that are going to set up our kids for the best possible future, and of course to be a really important future workforce to take care of all of us, because we're going to be the aging population that's going to need them, and we have a smaller population coming up compared to the population that's aging.
Elena, let me do a little deeper dive on this angle, though. Usually when the federal government tries to become an equal player with the provinces in a particular social service, there are strings attached. So the feds often say, here's the money, but you got to do X, Y, and Z. What's the X, Y, and Z in this case that the feds are going to insist on for the amount of money that they're putting in?
Well, there's still details to come, but what is really clear in the language of the budget is that there will be a priority on not-for-profit services. There is a priority on quality, and there is, we suspect, a priority on funding the services, because what they're really talking about here is building a system, not another tax credit, not another one-time payment to set up a program. This is about system building. It's about funding the services. So we can expect to see some restrictions and measures on how that money is spent. And really, that's important in our province. This is a lot of money. It's important to children and families, and we have to make sure we get it right. And so the federal government does have a leadership role to play here in setting those expectations. But yeah, a lot is still to come in the details.
Well, speaking of the details, all right, Armin, I don't have to tell you, there are people in this country who simply don't believe in this. There are people in this country who say, rather than using public money to create spaces, you should do what kind of the Stephen Harper approach was, which was simply to flow money to parents and let them make their own decisions about whether they want to spend that money on actual childcare in a professional setting or using that money for their own purposes as it relates to childcare. They are going to look at this $30 billion price tag and they're going to say, OMG. What do you want to say to those people today?
We've done it their way for 50 years. So the amount of money that flows to parents through the Canada Child Benefit, and don't forget in the fall economic statement, there was another $2.4 billion that was money in your pockets. More money in your pockets is always the conservative solution to everything, whether it's a tax cut or some kind of refundable tax credit or whatever it is. It's all about more money in your pocket. More money in your pocket does not build one more new regulated high quality. It does not train one more person. It does not enforce quality controls. And I want to go back to your question actually about what do the provinces what do the feds want from the provinces, and what are they likely to ask the provinces for? And I want to point out that Ontario, as much as we talk about Quebec being the leader of the pack in Canada in terms of affordable and accessible childcare, which it is, there is no question about that. It took women's employment rate from below average to above average, and it is now the world leader in labor force participation rates of women with children under the age of 3. So we know how to get more moms working. But that isn't the only thing. We would be leaving money on the table if we are not improving the learning potential of children, making sure they're learning ready when they enter school and learning supported as they go through school. We literally know that that pays for itself in addition to mommies getting back to work. And in Ontario, we are the leaders in high quality care for 4- and 5-year-olds. Who, not because of Premier Ford, but because of ex-Premier Wynne, who introduced full-day junior and senior kindergarten. In fact, Premier Legault campaigned on that when he was trying to become a leader. So every province has got a quality issue as well as an accessibility issue. Even Quebec has got childcare deserts. Every province is going to come to that table for bilateral negotiations, looking for the things that are of priority for them to improve, just like they did in 2017. Except now there's a quality part of this that has been explicitly labeled, which has got to do with the quality of the people providing the care. And if you are underpaying people and deregulating their qualifications, you're going to get suboptimal care for our youngest learners. Why would you do that? So why would the federal government pour money into a subpar system? That's why I think all three of us are so excited is, yes, there's a lot of money on the table. And there are not so much conditions as deals that will be cobbled province by province within a framework that really lifts up the importance of the quality of the care that children are receiving. That's a huge breakthrough.
Just a little piece here. I mean, for the record, I don't think there's a chance in HE double hockey sticks that Dalton McGuinty is watching us right now. But if he were, I think he'd be yelling at the TV set saying, "It was me who did it. It wasn't Kathleen Wynne. It was me." So, for the record.
My apologies to the former premier, whoever it was. But
it was the 24th, not the 25th premier. Anyways, Kate, but the whole issue of Quebec, has been raised again. And let me do a quick follow on that. Is the Quebec model, which, as we've just heard from Armin, gets kudos all the time, is it exportable to the rest of the country?
Yeah, I think it really is. And I think, the thing about the Quebec model, and I think that it's something that we need to hold in the back of our minds, is that Quebec launched a comprehensive review and reform of its family policy that included both parental leave and early childhood education and care. And what they did in early childhood education and care was they did what is being proposed in the federal budget, which is funding the services, funding the workforce, and building operational capacity. Those are the three pillars that are absolutely needed and are scalable to have the kinds of outcomes that we've seen in Quebec. Armin has alluded to the kind of return on investment in the Quebec model. We know that for every dollar invested yields conservatively more than double in returns. And we saw that in Quebec over the period from about 1997 to 2016, the investments in early childhood education and care, and of course in other areas of family policy, yielded a 16 percentage point increase in women's labor market participation. Elsewhere in Canada, that was just 4% over the same period. So we see that kind of comprehensive attention to design with those three principles attended to yields the kind of developmental, social, and economic outcomes that are good for kids, good for parents, and great for our economy.
Let me do this with Alana, because, of course, when you say childcare, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And I guess we need to understand, is the money in yesterday's budget announced by the federal government designed to go to not-for-profit licensed childcare operators only, or do the independents and or for-profits get a piece of this action as well?
It seems like the federal government is indicating a preference for not-for-profit service delivery, although it's unclear what that really looks like. Again, there's details to come. In Ontario, right now, about 75% of childcare services are delivered through not-for-profit models. So I think the federal government is going to be looking for the provinces to continue investments in those areas, and that's for a number of good reasons we know. Every dollar invested into a not-for-profit program goes directly back into the program. It supports higher staff wages, better working conditions, supplies for the children. So it really enhances the quality that is so important in this federal budget and that we've never really seen governments take on quite so robustly. So I think that's an important question, and I think it's a question that we're going to have to work collaboratively with the federal government to see how we make this happen.
Okay, let's do this fast here. Stat Board 2, please, Sheldon. Is this a career people still want to go into is the question. And Alana's Association did some surveying. 2,000 nearly replied. 43% say they're considering leaving the early years sector. 13% are actively seeking opportunities outside the sector. 89% report an increase in job-related stress. 54% report decreased job satisfaction over the past year. Naturally, a common concern being that increased sanitization responsibilities are taking away from time normally spent with kids. I guess, Alana, my question is, how difficult is it going to be to build the kind of system you want when so many people are apparently either unhappy in it or may actually want to get out of it?
I don't think it's going to be that difficult. We know the solutions to address the recruitment and retention issues in our sector. They existed before the pandemic, and certainly they've been exacerbated by it, as you just saw in those figures. We're hearing from early childhood educators that they're stressed, they're exhausted, they're frustrated, they feel left behind by this province, and they're ready for change. But what's remarkable about our sector is their commitment and their dedication to the work that they do. What they need is decent work. They need professional pay and compensation. They need access to a wage grid, a publicly funded wage grid. We know the policy solutions and the funding solutions to get there. It's just a matter of the political will. And I have to say, this is the first time we've seen the federal government recognize that valuing early childhood educators as the heart of the system. This is monumental language for our sector. This is going to change lives. So I think the federal government has got it right. We know that this will take investment into the workforce, but that is a key component of funding the services. You cannot separate them.
Kate, I'm literally down to 20 seconds here, but I am kind of curious. Do you think it took a working mom as a female finance minister to get this through ultimately?
You know, I think yes, I do in some ways. I think it's important for us to recognize that this is our first gender equal cabinet in Canadian history. I think that having a woman finance minister deliver this is historic and important. And I think that it shows that we may have been thinking the wrong way about getting childcare forward because we needed to have more women at the table to make it happen. And I'm very grateful that we've arrived at this point.
Gotcha. Well, as I thank the three of you for coming onto our program tonight, the one question I didn't get to ask, but I really want to, is, Armeen, how many LP records do you have behind you at the moment? That is amazing.
I am lucky enough to live with an audio fan, and we do a lot of dancing in the kitchen. So I don't know how many thousands of records we've got, but
that is wonderful.
Awesome living here.
That is wonderful, and I'll bet you'll be dancing tonight. Okay, Armeen Yalnizyan, Alana Powell, Kate Bezanson, it's so good of all of you to join us on TVO tonight. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. And by viewers like you. Thank you.